You're tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here's your host, John J. Tassoni Jr., with today's guest.
Thank you for joining me on another edition of Recovery TV. We're going to talk about gambling today, but first of all, I want you to get Narcan. Go to your drugstore, pick it up, URI has it, get it, put it in your purse, leave it in your car, take it out at night. This saves lives. We're down 7%. We need to be down a lot further. So my guests today are Nancy Murray and Christina Amadeo. Christina is from United Way and Nancy Murray is from the Problem Gambling Services. So ladies, welcome and thank you for joining us today. So Nancy, I'll turn to you because you've been involved in this sector for a long time.
Well, actually, so is Christine. Yeah, I'm only 21. Actually, Christine and I are both here representing the Rhode Island Council. And I believe we were on the board at the same time, going all the way back to the 1990s.
Wow.
1998 for
Yep.
me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure gambling has made a whole 360-degree
When
turn.
we started, there were no table games.
Yeah.
It was just Keno and scratchers.
Could still use your quarters.
Could still use your quarters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So tell me what you're in the realm of doing right now. Since Bally's now has the app, more table games, more slot machines, more everything.
So, with all of those additions, there was legislation put in place where the industry has to provide for education, training, and treatment. And I'll let Christina talk to the 211 line, which was funded in 2012, I believe.
It actually started in 1998, but
Okay.
With a specific line geared for gambling. And the National Council, with this latest whole sports thing, you'll see on every game, whether it's cricket in Yugoslavia or NFL, the 1-800-GAMBLE line, which does bounce to our United Way line. So
You know what I find disturbing, I'll say that, is that when you're watching TV now, almost every other ad, especially on the sports stations, is for gambling.
yes.
And they're getting sophisticated with top athletes promoting gambling. That bothers me because the calls that I get, that you get, are these young folks, middle-aged, and college students racking up tremendous amount of money,
Tremendous amounts.
on their credit cards. And they're going to need a backhoe to get out of the debt that they're in at a young age. That's concerning. It's concerning to me, too, that the state would prey on these young folks. It should not be 18 anymore. It should be 21.
Well, they did that with the last piece of legislation about the iGaming
iGaming.
on the phone, but the legislation on the sports app was for 18 years old. What I find disturbing is, and I like watching sports, is the announcers giving the line
Right.
and telling
Right,
you what
right.
it's like that's not your job.
Right.
So there is legislation proposed in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
to regulate that portion of the sports betting, that people need to do just their job, and the spread, the line, the parlays, whatever is happening on the side should be done by the industry paying commercial.
Right. Right. And the other thing I have a problem with is that now that these kids who are 18 years old, still in high school, can go to Bally's, get the app, and now they're running their own little side business in the high schools. And people look at me like, yeah, no way. I'm saying, yeah, way. Yeah, it's happening. Because little Johnny can say to Nancy, give me $5. I'll keep 5, I'll bet 5, we win, I get 10%, whatever. It's going back to the old days but now it's in the schools.
Yeah.
You know, and I had that meeting, that conversation with the Interscholastic League. But guess what? They never called me back.
So guess what? They have called us back, and we
Okay.
are working with them. We have a contract. The council has a contract with them to do youth promotional education awareness.
Good.
We're working with Bally's and a place called Epic out of, I think it's Great Britain. I'm on the sidelines with that group, just as an advisor now that I've retired. Get that in there. But they are putting together a tremendous program for PGAM geared towards
Oh,
youth.
good. Good. I'm glad
And
to hear that.
part of the webinar series, which I'll talk about in a minute, that the council is doing on providing education, is going to be that group coming out in the end of February with 2 webinars discussing all of the programs that are going to take place during PGAM.
Now, how did United Way get involved in this?
It's a
Christina.
long story.
Okay.
So if we go back
We
to
got about 20 minutes, but go ahead.
it'll take me 2. We're going back to 1998, where we were still a helpline. We weren't 211 yet. We were just a helpline. But the Rhode Island Lottery got together with an agency called Travelers Aid, and also the Rhode Island Council on Problem Gambling back then, Sal Marsili. And they decided that the helpline would be a perfect place to put a gambler's helpline, because gambling addiction had a lot of underlying conditions, as we all know now. Back then it wasn't as fashionable, but
Yeah.
right now we know the co-occurring conditions. So it started there, and it was very, very small. We started getting about 10 calls a month. That's what we were getting. It had its own specific number, which is still the number that we use today, 1-877-9-GAMBLE, and that's in addition to the national number, which is 1-800-GAMBLER. Both point to United Way. United Way also merged that with 211 when 211 became active in 2007. And then also when the Aging and Disability Resource Center became active in 2010. All of this gave us the perfect combination of providing individuals not only with gambling help in connecting them to the right resources, but also providing social services help and benefits enrollment. So that's how the United Way became involved. Not so much from the substance abuse side, but from the social services delivery side.
You know, one of the things too, I think my viewers need to know how the partnership with Bally's has been. Obviously, they give you a lot of money to provide services for people who don't have health care or don't have the means to pay for the services. So can you hit on that a little bit?
Yeah, so in 2012, they put some legislature put together a bill that said that the industry needed to pay a minimum of $100,000, which included money for the helpline, the 877 number, and to provide services for people who are in trouble with gambling. That went on like that until back and forth till about 2016. There were probably 5 or 6 providers. They were billing maybe $30,000-$40,000 a year in services. The calls were not that great. I don't think it was advertised as well as it could have been. And at that time, I was president of the council, and Jerry Orban and Peg asked me if I would consider coming on and taking hold of the program and creating a full-blown treatment prevention piece. So I did.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop
Yeah.
you there for a second because I got to pay the bills. I got to go to commercial.
Okay.
We'll talk more about that when we come back. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back with PGS right after this.
And now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Rhode Island Council on Problem Gambling Services is in the house. And we're taping today, and Problem Gambling Month next month. So ladies, thank you for joining us today. The more awareness that we give to folks today, especially the parents of kids, and knowing what to expect, if in fact they say they're going to Bally's to pick up something, it's not a good thing. We need to change the age from 18 to 21.
Yeah.
At least give them at least 3 more years to grow up.
Yeah,
So, Nancy, I cut you short.
that's okay. So subsequent bills, every time they added a new type of gambling, that was table games, and they went with sports, and now they went with the ILA. More and more has been added to that minimum. So right now the minimum is $250,000. Last year, but just before I left in December, not this year, the year before, we've spent well over $650,000. And Bally has never questioned,
Blinked an
balked,
eye.
blinked an eye. They just you submit the bills, they pay them. And the bills are not for big overhead or fancy office space or fancy, nobody has cars.
It's for services.
It's for services. It pays for the services. And one salary comes out of that.
Yep. So what is United Way, what kind of programs do they have? You know, when you get the calls, you call Nancy?
Not really. She's not on my speed dial right now because she's retired.
Okay.
No, so when someone calls the helpline, the way it works is if the person has a gambling issue or if they're caring for someone who has a gambling issue, we do an intake on them and we assess what needs they have. If they need to talk to someone and they have a gambling issue, we have a direct line to program gambling services. That phone is also answered 24 hours a day, and it's answered by our colleague that is always ready to provide services right there and then to someone that is calling for help. In addition to that, if someone needs therapy or if someone needs benefits enrollment, we can help them with that as well. But the fundamental services that the Gamblers Helpline provides, when we answer it 24/7 in about 200 different languages if need be,
Oh, wow.
but primarily in Spanish and Portuguese and English, that person is connected directly to a gambling counselor, a gambling addiction counselor that has experience, is a lifetime, how shall I put it, a lifetime professional in helping someone right away. The one thing that I have to say is we still get a lot of hang-ups on that line. So a lot of people that call us, they hang up before we actually pick up the phone. So I urge you, if you're hearing this program and you are calling the helpline, whether you call 877, whether you call 1-800-GAMBLER, please don't hang up. Stay on the line with our callers. You will not be judged. You will get the right services for what you're asking for.
I know, Nancy, you were just going to say something?
I was glad she mentioned the various languages because there is a program, a translation program that we can hook people up, get on the line with them, and not lose. The time from the initial call to admission, the goal is within 24 hours. It's been as quick as 2.
Wow.
Usually the call is answered within 15 minutes. When we
Yeah.
activate problem gambling services, it takes about 15 minutes.
So I think one of the things I want to talk to you ladies about is the training. There's a lot of folks who have been trained. A lot more folks need to be trained because the problem is escalating. So tell my viewers a little bit about the training, how many hours they have to go through to be professionals.
Any licensed person, and by license I mean healthcare professional, RN, PhD, nurse practitioner, LCDP, LMHT, LICs, the whole alphabet soup, that wants to become gambling endorsed on their license is to take the 30-hour Gambling Academy, which you can go to the RICPG website and find the link and sign up for it there. That gets you to take the course. It's self-paced, and at the end of it, you get a certificate saying you completed it. You submit that. I believe it's $100 to the Rhode Island Licensure Board, and they will add gambling endorsement on your license, whatever it be. In the meantime, there's also the International Board of Certified Gambling Counselors who offer training and certification, and there's also the Rhode Island Council who does monthly webinars So we started with a series last year, and since June of this year, we've had 6 and had over 60 to 70 people on each webinar
good.
live.
Good.
And you have to stay on the call. They're free. They're all worth 1.5 CEUs through NBCC, NASW Rhode Island, the International Board, and the Rhode Island Certification Board.
I remember when you were with us at 200 Metro Center Boulevard, we started those classes,
Yep.
and it was pretty intense for the 30 hours that they needed to take
Yeah.
in order to have the endorsement. But some of the folks that did that are now like the top professionals
Yes.
in the country. You know, and you also, I think my viewers need to know that you have a seminar every year for all these folks to come and learn more, and you have these speakers from all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the world. It's not even all over the Rhode Island, it's all over the world. I
all
went
over
to
the
one
world.
2 years ago that we had that guy from England there. He had an unbelievable story.
Yes. So it's May 9th this year. It will be at the Marriott. It's 4.5 to 5 CEUs. We haven't finished the schedule yet. Right now we're focusing on PGAM and getting out as much education. The programs coming out of the work group for the PGAM effort are going to focus on interscholastic league athletes and parents. So the colleges, and I don't want to take too much of their thunder because they're going to come on, do their own thing, but there are 6 colleges, institutes of higher ed that are involved, that have been involved with the council along the way, and that's Rick, URI, Bryant, CCRI, Providence College, did I say URI? Oh, and Johnson Wales.
That's how it was. I'm going to interrupt you because guess what? I got to go to break again.
Okay.
I got to pay the bills. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages.
And now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. We're talking about gambling. This is Gambling Month. And we have Christine Amadeo and Nancy Murray here from Problem Gambling Services. So, Christina, I don't want to steal your thunder. I don't want to cut you off, so give me what you got.
Well, I have a lot, so you might have to cut me off.
All right.
So at United Way, as I mentioned, we run the Gamblers Helpline. We receive our training from our colleagues at Problem Gambling Services, but we are also a member of the National Council on Problem Gambling. They might have one of the best gambling addiction conference that we attend. It is usually a 3-day conference, Nancy.
Yeah.
It's usually a 3-day conference. They bring people from all over the world. We meet with colleagues from all over the country. If you are in the gambling world or if you are in the addiction world, I encourage you to attend. It is a very well-organized conference. You leave out of there very inspired and with a lot of contacts that can possibly help you and your constituents. We are also part of the New England Consortium on Problem Gambling. So we have a meeting quarterly where we meet with our colleagues from New England. We alternate in each state. So we go from Vermont to Maine, Massachusetts to Connecticut. But in addition to that, we also work with our friends at the 988 line. We receive a lot of our training, or our team receives a lot of our training from the 988 folks, where we get training not only on gambling, but also on trauma-informed care, on co-occurring conditions, on an array of services that basically support the counseling that we can give someone when they call 8779-GAMBLER or 1-800-GAMBLER. In addition to that, I mentioned the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is a specific center that helps individuals that are on Medicare, Medicaid, or individuals that need long-term care services or home and community care.
Now, I'm going to have to cut you off now
What?
because I only have 25 seconds left.
And you
Dave,
took my
said-
25 seconds.
I took it. But I want to thank both of you for coming on today.
That's
love
it.
Love to have to come back on. You know, I got Desiree Soto coming on next week from Problem Gambling Services. She's a new director, takes Nancy's spot. So if you see something, say something. We'll see you next week.